Victoria Scone, will you please step forward? Victoria, I applaud you for working through your pain this week. However, your knee injury requires additional evaluation. Tomorrow morning, you'll leave our set, and depending on what the doctors say, we'll decide whether or not it's safe for you to continue in this competition. Now, I want you here, but more than anything, I want you healthy.
I'm afraid to say it, Mary. Last week we were celebrating Victoria Scone, but it looks like next week we'll be mourning the fact that Victoria's gone.
Wah, 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 wah. But at least you've resolved the great debate that I think Michelle Visage has taken to Twitter of whether it is scone or scone. And so I think we'll know next week whether we've got a scone or whether we've got a scone.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I was chatting with a Mary on the DMs in Instagrams, and they were describing the great debate. Actually, I think most people that wrote in that was something to chime in on, because it's just not clear cut. It's not clear cut. People have passionate feelings about it, but it's not clear cut. He did mention that actually another debate to have is whether you put jam or cream on your scone first.
Okay. I don't think I would put cream on it at all, which probably opens up a whole other bag of beans. That just,
you know, I'm sure Victoria's jammed it first. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm sure she's been jammed a few times. Absolutely.
Oh, I just meant her knee.
Oh. I was, she's cute. I'm sure she's full of jam.
This to me was even more shocking than Crystal Versace winning this week, Mary.
Yeah, I mean, the whole episode, because we've all seen Drag Race before. We've seen a busted knee, we've seen a twisted ankle. We know that we know what happens, and so once a queen has to sit on a stool during the challenge, it's like, okay, I mean, should any of us be that shocked? But you kind of just go, no, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. It's Vicky. It's Victoria Scone.
It could be like Evie Oddly,
exactly.
right? It could just be, she'll bounce back.
She'll bounce back. It'll be fine. And so, I mean, then when RuPaul calls her up, they cut to Victoria, and she's just like, fuck. Then she's, stumbling up the stage in Treats, the stinky red trainers, which, by the way, need to go in the time capsule. But what I love, and I don't know what's going to happen, obviously, and I don't want any spoilers, but I love the goop of, well, we need you to go to the, the Med Express down the street and get that checked out, and then we'll decide.
Yeah. Express Health, for sure.
Yeah. The NHS is standing by,
Leave campus.
Yes, you do need to. Yeah, this is not an infirmary situation. They need to go to the local hospital.
Right. Yeah, I am not so optimistic about this. This is way too much drama to set up. You have RuPaul saying, "Well, I want you here." But, and it's like, okay, I think we know where this is going. It's not looking good. It looks like she's in a lot of pain, and that she probably needs to be in a lot of pain for a couple more days, which in TV time isn't going to work out. Right.
I mean, the only thing I can think is like, well, the next challenge is a design challenge. Can she just sit there and sew for 2 days? Could that be to her advantage that the next challenge won't really require much movement? If it's a matter of...
She has to cry and cut. Just cry
exactly.
And cut.
Shuffle and pray, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, it was my mouth agape when this happened.
Yeah. It was when it happened. I was surprised, but I think I'm just in doubt. I'm in denial. I'm like, no, it's going to be fine. She's going to make it to the top 3. This is just a goop on the way, to the crown or at least the finale.
there was just so much anticipation for her to be on this season, more than Eureka or Veronica.
Right.
You know,
In terms
like
of
queens
queens
that had to go home.
Right, exactly, right. There's so much more to it. And I feel like then to your point, like RuPaul has to like doubly add like, just to be clear, I really want you here.
Right.
This is not,
right.
Do not come for me.
It's not because you're a cis woman.
Yeah. Like, do not look at me. But who
Wow.
knows? It's certainly an interesting twist early in the season, but
a twist.
a
okay.
twist,
Yeah,
y'all wanted a
something like
sprain. Yeah.
Come on, UK3. Let's bang our knee. Yeah.
I'm feeling swell, thanks. Yeah.
Oh God, what a great cast we have here.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm really sad, Mary. This was not the way I wanted it to end. This episode, I gotta say, I was very confused by the challenge, but that happens a lot on Drag Race. So like that fine. I'm just kind of like, great, okay, weird challenge. I love weirdness. It's fine.
Chaotic. Yeah.
Yeah, chaotic. That's the word. And then the judging I thought was way off, and then Vicky's gone.
It was certainly, an interesting. I had a good time watching this episode the whole time. There was a lot of moments where I was like really enjoying myself. Lots of pointing at the television while alone in my living room, so there's no reason. Just having a good time. And even during the challenge and during the rehearsal, which all of it was, I was like, did I take Theraflu? I cannot follow any of what's going on right now. But I also was I didn't care. I was like, whatever. Like, what if we just had fun with a chaotic challenge,
Oh, sure. we got Odie Mabuse, and I'm just kind of like, thank God we got Odie Mabuse, right?
Well, sure. Yeah. I don't even know what to say about that. But one of the things I liked the most about getting her is that we got to see Victoria being a horny lesbian on television.
Oh, I know.
On Drag
Oh, my
Race. And that made me feel really
just
good.
Just a cat.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. It was like, ugh.
Yeah. But Odie was having a fabulous time. Which
was.
I just love when a judge is just like living for things.
But it was like during the rehearsal. And obviously that's what they show us. But it was like, it was going, the choreography was going by so quickly. I was like, is this? The narrative was that like she was, she came in for an advanced level class and she had a bunch of beginners, intermediates, like she had like jazz and tap for 5-year-olds and thought she was walking into like, modern dance for 21-year-olds,
Yeah, she was like Abby in Dance Moms, right? She wasn't teaching her, her touring competing group. She was doing the riffraff.
Yeah, she thought she was getting Alvin Alien, said she got Alvin and the Chipmunks. And which I love,
Yes, Christmas, don't be late.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure. Yeah, I think she was having a great time. I will say, just to kind of keep the opening discussion about Vicky's Gone, she during her part of the challenge when they when they showed that part, they didn't. It was the baby size group, I think, right?
She was in the baby size group, with Ella and Charity,
Scarlett and
yeah.
Charity, yeah. And she was sitting there and doing what she could on the stool, and you could tell that they were just editing way around her. There wasn't much like dialogue during that scene. You know what I mean? Like during their bit,
right? To like focus on instead of the moves, yeah.
Exactly, and it was just kind of like, wow. We just saw everybody else messing up, essentially. Is what they showed, and didn't show much of Victoria Scone or Vic Scone. And then we got her runway, and her runway was lovely. It was just very simple, but I have to say her commentary is what I think does give her the Best Supporting Actress this week. Where's my Oscar, darling? I deserve it. I'm in fucking agony. And you have to applaud. You have to applaud.
She is so charming as in terms of the reality TV side of things, in terms of somebody we're meeting on television. She's so charming, certainly feels like the heart of the season already. And I love those glasses. I'm just obsessed with those glasses.
You always kind of latch on to glasses.
Yeah.
I think it started with
Monet's Baby's First Glasses.
Baby's first
Yeah.
glasses.
I was just thinking, who's got great glasses? I mean, Michelle Visage.
Raja, Michelle Visage,
Uh-huh.
Raja for sure.
Raja, yes, with those big
yeah.
real estate agent glasses from
Steve,
the 70s.
or Steve Urkel glasses.
Yeah. Did I sew that? Sorry, I don't know. That's so stupid. I don't know why.
Oh, you're going straight to
I just had to
hell.
get it
Oh my
out.
God.
Yeah. Did I sew that? God.
Did I sew that? Yeah, Victoria Scone, really, she's shown the most. She's sconed the most in the workroom, handling that discussion.
Well, yeah.
With Crystal Versace.
I love how much time and lack of editing was given to that conversation. Like she was given the space to just talk, and I thought that was really. And obviously, it grew into a larger conversation. But I thought that was a great, quote unquote, social justice corner workroom moment.
Well, and what's interesting is I know that Crystal Versace is getting a lot of hell online for the fat shaming and the joke, and I have thoughts on the show kind of doing everybody dirty with that mini challenge and opening this door up and the pressure to be funny and all of that and all of that. But what's great about it is we did have someone, I don't know if we've seen this before, where Aunt Vicky lets Crystal kind of apologize and then moves forward with the conversation. So instead of it being, fuck you, you're a bitch, I'm not talking to you, it became a dialogue. It kind of transcended. And she even calls it out at the end of the whole conversation with everybody. She's like, what a lovely conversation, all stemming from Crystal calling me fat.
I love that.
Oh my God. That's helpful. That's proper. That's growth. That's transcendence, right? That is a moment to kind of capture and remember that it doesn't have to be, fuck you, Crystal, you're an asshole. And it can be, hey, that was a really, really dick thing to say. What do you want to say about it? And kind of allow it to turn into something. Allow them to all then start saying their own stories, right? I think it was, it was her. You never know what someone's been through, you just never know. And that goes for any size or any shape or any color,
Well, and I think what they kind of showed in this segment was that, there was examples of feeling insecure about your size. There was Elektra feeling insecure about her freckles, which you were horn dogging over just last episode.
Oh.
So it just goes to show you.
And I saw much more this episode.
Yeah, the whole constellation. So I thought of that. I was like, well, isn't that just perfect example of there can be something that you are incredibly self-conscious about, and someone else can be like, oh, that's what I love the most. Like when I see somebody with a big nose, I'm like, ugh. Can it get bigger? I just love a nose. But some people are, look at this nose,
Well, yeah, and some people get nose jobs, right?
Yeah,
Because
right?
they don't like their nose.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, keep
right.
your
And
nose.
he wanted to bleach his skin.
Right? And so, and then
Yeah.
there was Vanity, talking about colorism and, about being darker skinned or also being the only black queen at school.
Oh, my
and the only
God.
black queen in the room, which I thought was really surprising that they showed that.
I was so happy that they called that out, that they kept that in.
Yeah.
That's super important. She's the only black queen. She feels like she's carrying her culture. I gotta say, first of all, they don't have to have that pressure. They really don't. It's not fair for anyone. It's not fair for the fans. It's not fair for the queen on the show. You can always ask, why is there only one? Why is there only one? And you can also say, you know what? She doesn't have to represent all of her culture.
Yeah,
she doesn't. The fans do that. They put that pressure on her, and she shouldn't have it.
Yeah, I think that because River kind of, agrees with that as well. And I think it's an interesting kind of, for example, we've never heard a white queen say, I'm trying to represent for all white queens on Drag Race.
Right.
And I think that, I don't know, I guess when I put it in that context, I think of anybody, it's like, Well, how could you possibly represent everybody who has the same skin color as you? Like,
You shouldn't.
like this.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, like if we were even to take like drag queens, you know what I mean? Like if you were to say like Vanity, you now have to like carry the torch for every black drag queen. I think of like Nina Bonina Brown, and I'm like, I can't think of a more different drag queen. You're not carrying the crown for her.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or anybody else who's like, well, that's not the drag I do. You know, Saint, that's not the drag I do. So you're not carrying the torch for me. You know?
Right, right. It's essentialism, right? It's kind of putting when you say, "Oh, who's the black queen on the season?" or "Who's the female queen on the season?" or "Who's the skinny queen? Who's the fat queen?" It's actually minimizing so much more that they can do or might want to do. And I just love how Vanity ended it with like, we're all so much more than our exterior. We're also gorgeous.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of like the tried and true expression, like it's time for a big girl to win, and it's like, well, Ginger, I don't think you should win because you're big. I think you should win because you're super talented. You know, like
Yeah, and she was the best on that season.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But yeah,
I mean, and not to take anything away from Kylie, because Kylie was phenomenal, and
yeah, but
you can have the opinion.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's one of those like we don't have to cover the other side just to make this point. You know what I mean? No one is ever taking anything away from Kylie in the first place. We're just this isn't about that. But I don't know. I just it's so interesting when I hear people say that because it's like obviously if you're in your own head and in that moment you can feel that pressure, but from the outside it's like, well, that's just silly. Like you should just represent yourself. Like that's the whole point here. But I get it. I get why that feeling would crop up. I suppose if I was the only white person in the room, I would then think, well, I now need to be the white person, you know?
I mean, I hope not, right?
But I get defaulting to that.
And it's exactly. And it is such the experience of so many minorities or marginalized or targeted communities when they walk into a room. You know what I mean? From just feeling out of place to stereotype threat, which is a thing, and just not performing because you feel like you have to be in your stereotype, right? It's just awful. And I think about Victoria and her experience as a dancer growing up. And I know that dancers are trained to look in the mirror and see flaws and fix them. Like, that's how they grow up. They grow up looking in the mirror and seeing how they can be better or look better, right? And I don't mean necessarily physical appearance, but I mean like the movement and all of that. And if you are trained to only see flaws, that's going to... If you don't have someone walking you through that, and making sure that you see the other side of it, it's going to be harsh, right? It's going to be difficult. And so for her to kind of be this person on TV now who's happy with her size, even though she's been bigger, been smaller, it's such a wonderful representation on the screen.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's great. I mean, when she had said, and of course I needed to use my old friend Google to do the math here, but when she said that she was 5'8" and 8 stone, 5'8" and 112 pounds, that is emaciated. I mean, like, I am 5'9" and I am more than 112 pounds. If I was 112 pounds, I would be on an IV right now. So it's really, I mean, that was really interesting too. And I think this was part of what she was saying, but I think this is obviously like a whole conversation to marry out on, is like kind of accepting like, well, this is what my body type's supposed to be, and like, so for her, for example, she's like, well, this is just kind of how I'm built. And so I'm never going to be, the ballerina body because that's not the model that I have, the model body that I'm carrying, And I just thought there's a lot of truth in that I think is very hard, and it's kind of a gray area when people think about weight loss and size and health and whatnot. Is like, I feel like there is that nuance to remember of like, well, what body type are you supposed to have? Like, I think of myself, I'm not supposed to have a 6-pack. My genetics are like, Colin, you don't want to have a 6-pack. None of us had it. You are not going to be the exception. And so I like make peace with that,
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. At some point you need to make peace with what your body is telling you. Absolutely. And I think on the inverse of this, like one of the things you just said, you're like, oh, well, if I don't have a ballerina body, I just don't have a ballerina body. The other perspective is, well, can't a ballerina have another body, right? Like, we can also challenge that too.
Well,
And that's
sure.
more systemic, isn't it?
I mean, that's like, okay, well, now you're going to dive into the deep end. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's like, what do you want to change first, yourself or what we mean when we say ballerina body, you know?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And that's not to say you could speak out about it, or you or you can change what you can control, which is how you feel and how you operate for your own self, because nobody else can do that for you.
Right. And it's funny. I think, I think anybody listening, or certainly ourselves, the journey of accepting your body and whatnot is a long one, but it is kind of funny to get to a point where it's like, I think I'm at more peace than I used to be about this. I think and it's weird. It's like, well, why, if it's so clear now, how come 10 years ago I was such a nutcase about it? Like, why was I going to Barry's boot camp so fucking much? Like, what was I chasing? And I don't know. I mean,
speaking of Peloton and Dragathon, right? Like, oh wow.
I mean,
it's very interesting.
Just thinking about, like, when I look back on, like, the times where I was really passionate about, like, fitness and whatnot, it was so. There was no pleasure in it. It was so moving towards a goal, except I never knew where the goal was, And it was moving. It was never considering, well, what's right for you? Because I think it was like one time years ago, I, just had one of those moments where, in life where everything lined up, and I was doing the paleo diet, which tells you kind of what time.
Oh, I remember
what era this was. I was doing the paleo diet, and I was doing Barry's boot camp, and so I was kind of getting it from both angles, and I lost a ton of weight. And, I took progress pictures and whatnot, and I look back at them now, and the pictures where I was like, wow, look how skinny I am. I look at it now, and I'm like, ugh. Not healthy. This is not you at your healthiest, And
oh, interesting.
I couldn't see that at all at the time. And I don't know. It's, I guess, all of that to say, and I'm certainly not the first person to say this, that, like, it's very much a mental thing more than it's even a physical thing,
Sure. Yeah, it's how you see yourself in the mirror. I got to say, with Victoria Scone, I think it was last week when she was talking about, finding drag and why drag works for her. It's not lost on me the parallels between, a queen like Eureka, for instance, who, when she's in drag is celebrated by the men in the club, despite, quote unquote, despite her size in her head.
Oh, yes.
And then when she's out of drag, she is ignored at the club. You know what I mean? There's this thing that happens with drag that you just have to be confident and in your own quote unquote skin and work in it and being the performer in the room. And it's that confidence that people just love. And that's why drag can kind of be seen as this armor, right? That hopefully at some point trains you to have those same kind of thoughts while you're out of drag. But I think it is that mentality. It is that mentality of, when I'm in drag, I think like this. Why can't I think like this when I'm out of drag? I'm the same person.
Right, exactly. And, like, yeah, that a lot of that energy that comes through while you're in drag has nothing to do with, like, the tits and the heels,
Right. And I just love that Victoria, that we have this platform for at least 2 episodes to make those parallels, that it is a human experience, right? When you are putting on a persona, it can kind of teach you some things about yourself when you're not playing that persona. And that goes back always to the Gospel of RuPaul, right?
Yeah, I think that's in the Old Testament even. Like, it's been around for, seasons 1 through 4, Drag you,
oh, God, drag you. I love that. Well, Mary, why don't we jump into this episode, but before we do, take a little break.
Oh, I could do that.